The cage and the crash, the prison was cold. Not cold like snow, but cold like metal and silence. A long hallway stretched in every direction, full of glowing blue force fields. Behind each field, someone sat or slept or just stared. No one spoke. She sat alone in her cell. Tall, with sharp eyes and a scar across her cheek, she looked like a warrior, but not anymore. Her armor was gone. Her sword was gone. Her hope was gone too. She was not human. Her skin had a faint silver glow, and her eyes were bright purple. Once, she had led an army. Now, she was just another prisoner of the Empire. She didn't even remember how many days she had been trapped here. Maybe weeks, maybe years, every day the same thing. The guards walked by. Food came through a slot in the wall. The lights never changed. She waited. But for what? Then something happened. First, it was a sound. Not the usual humming of machines, but a deep rumble from above. The ground shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Sirens screamed. Red lights flashed. The guards shouted something in their language and ran toward the upper level. She stood. Something had changed. She could feel it. Outside her cell, others were awake now too. Prisoners pressed against the force fields, looking up. A loud crash echoed through the prison. Metal groaned. A door above exploded open. Then she saw it. A fireball in the sky. A ship, small, burning, falling. It hit the ground near the main tower with a deafening roar. For a moment, everything was silent again. Then footsteps, fast, heavy, more shouting. And then, she saw him. Not a guard, not one of her kind. Something different. A human. He fell through the smoke, coughing, limping, holding something in his hand. She froze. A human? That was impossible. Humans were gone, extinct, destroyed in the last war. Everyone knew that. But there he was. Real. He looked around, confused. Afraid. His clothes were burned. He had cuts on his face. And in his hand, her eyes widened. It couldn't be. It was her sword. The blade was old, heavy, and shaped like a lightning bolt. Its handle was marked with ancient signs. It glowed faintly when it touched her skin. And now, this human held it. Her breath caught in her throat. How? Why? Before she could move, the guards saw him. "Stop!" they shouted. The human turned, tried to run, but stumbled. The sword fell from his hand. It slid across the floor and stopped near her cell. She stepped forward and reached for it. The force field buzzed as her hand came close. The sword began to glow. Blue light shimmered along the blade. It pulsed like a heartbeat. The guards saw it too. "That's the artifact," one shouted. "Get it now!" They ran toward the cell. The human looked up and saw her. Their eyes met. He didn't speak, but something passed between them. A question. A connection. Then he did something strange. He kicked the sword toward her. It hit the force field and passed through. The field sparked. Then, for a second, it flickered. She didn't wait. She grabbed the sword. Energy rushed into her hand like fire and wind and thunder all at once. The force field shattered with a loud crack. The guards stopped. So did the human. She stepped out of the cell, holding the sword. For the first time in years, she felt whole. The guards raised their weapons. "Don't move," she smiled. "Too late," she said, and she ran. She grabbed the human by the arm and pulled him down a side tunnel. Alarms blared behind them. Doors slammed shut. Footsteps followed. But she didn't stop. Her sword was back, and maybe, just maybe, so was her fight. The human and the hope darkness. Smoke. Cold wind. They ran through the tunnels beneath the prison, lit only by flickering lights and the soft glow of her sword. Each step echoed. Behind them, voices shouted. Boots thudded. The Empire's guards were close. The woman held her sword tight. Her hands shook, not from fear, but from something else. Power, memory, emotion. After all this time, it was back in her grip. Her soul felt alive again. Beside her, the human stumbled. He was young, bloody, confused, but he kept moving. He didn't speak her language. She didn't speak his. But still, they ran together. She didn't know who he was, or how he had the sword, but something told her. He was important, not just to her, to something bigger. They reached a metal door. Old, rusted, sealed shut. She raised the sword. It glowed brighter. With one sharp swing, she sliced the lock in half. The door creaked open, revealing a hidden tunnel with walls covered in strange writing. Ancient. Forgotten. She paused. This wasn't part of the prison. This was something else. The human looked at her, then at the markings on the wall. He raised a shaky hand and pointed at one of the symbols. She blinked. He recognized it. How? He pressed his palm to the wall. Nothing. Then she did the same, placing her hand next to his. The wall opened. They stepped inside. Silence. They stood in a long, narrow room. Strange machines lined the walls, broken screens, wires hanging like vines. In the center, an old chair surrounded by lights. She looked around. This was a control room, a forgotten part of the war. Maybe even older. The human sat on the ground, breathing hard. She knelt beside him. He pointed to the sword again, then to himself, then to her. She understood. He was asking, "Why do you want it so badly?" She hesitated. She touched the sword's edge. Her eyes stared at it like it was a ghost. Flashback. Fire. Screaming. Soldiers running. Her people. Brave, proud, falling one by one. She had led them. The sword was not just a weapon. It was a key. A symbol. When she held it, her people followed. When she lost it, the empire crushed everything. She looked at the human again. Why did he have it? Was he just lucky? Or chosen? Suddenly, click. The machines turned on. Lights blinked. Screen showed a map. A signal blinked red in the distance. She leaned in. A rebel base? Survivors? She turned to the human and smiled for the first time. Hope, she whispered. He didn't understand the word, but he saw her eyes, and he nodded. Then, boom. The wall behind them exploded. Guards stormed in, shouting, "There! They're here!" She stood between them and the human. The sword lit up, brighter than before. With a roar, she charged. Her blade cut through the air like lightning. One guard fell, then another. Sparks flew, but there were too many. The human grabbed a pipe from the floor and swung it clumsily. He hit one guard, then fell back. The woman turned. One guard raised his blaster. Too late. The shot fired. She jumped in front. The blast hit her shoulder. She screamed, but stayed standing. She swung again. The sword's glow pulsed once, then exploded, in white light. Everything stopped. Guards fell back, blind. The tunnel shook. When the light faded, she was on her knees. The human helped her up. They ran again, this time deeper into the old tunnels, away from the prison. The Empire had seen the sword. They would never stop now. But something had changed. She no longer felt alone. She had the sword, and she had him. Maybe that was enough. Maybe the war was not over. Cliffhanger. In the shadows far away, someone watched them on a screen. A tall figure in dark armor turned to a guard. "She has it again," he said. The guard trembled. "What should we do?" The figure smiled. "We let her run. For now. But when she reaches the rebel signal," he leaned forward, "we'll be waiting." The escape and the echoes. The tunnels were endless. Some were dry, full of dust and silence. Others were damp, dripping with water from broken pipes. Every sound echoed. Every step felt watched. She moved ahead, sword in hand, shoulders tight. The human followed close behind, still limping, still confused, but trying to be brave. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. Something in the air had changed. Her wound burned. The shot had gone deep, but she didn't stop. Pain was old. To her, it was like an old enemy that visited often, unwelcome but familiar. They reached a dead end. Or so it looked. But she saw it, a symbol carved into the metal wall, an old mark of her people. A hidden door. She touched the mark with the tip of her sword. The wall opened with a soft hiss. Inside, silence. Darkness. Then, light. Soft blue lights rose along the floor. They stepped into a room built long before the Empire. A place not even the guards knew about. This was a memory chamber. She had only heard stories. Walls covered in glass. Inside each panel, images, still and glowing, like frozen memories. A battlefield, a city in the sky, a council of warriors. Her heart beat faster. This was real. This was her history, her people's truth. The human stepped forward. He looked at the glowing images with wide eyes. He stopped in front of one panel. She turned to see what he saw, and froze. The image showed her, younger, stronger, standing in armor, holding the sword high. Her name carved in light beneath it. She was not just a soldier, she had been a general. And the human. He pointed to the corner of the image. A figure stood beside her in the vision. Not clear, but human-shaped. Me? He asked quietly, almost like a child. She stared at it. Could it be? Was this a vision from the past, or a warning from the future? Before she could answer, the lights blinked out. The room darkened. Then, a soft voice filled the air. Old, mechanical, tired, identity confirmed. Blade-bearer returned. Welcome, Commander. She spun around. The center of the room opened. A round platform rose. On it, a small device. A glowing orb with floating symbols. The voice continued. Last command was unfinished. Rebellion status terminated. Emergency protocol activate new mission. The woman stepped forward slowly. What mission? She asked. The orb pulsed. Find the last spark. Awaken the gate. Unite the scattered. The human looked confused. She understood some of it, but not all. What was the spark? What gate? Before she could ask more, a sharp noise broke the moment. A sensor. Blinking red. Movement in the tunnel behind them. The Empire had found their trail. She grabbed the orb and slid it into a small slot in her belt. The light faded, but the data stayed with her. They ran again. This time, deeper. The tunnels twisted. Some led down. Others climbed high through vents and shattered walls. At one point, they passed a room filled with broken machines. Old armor suits, weapons, maps of space routes long destroyed. She paused at a control panel. The human watched. As she wiped dust from the screen, blinking point marked a location far away. A name appeared in ancient script. She whispered it out loud. Soul Gate. The human repeated the words. She turned to him. This is where we go next. But before they could move, a loud hum, a flash, of red light behind them, then a voice calm and cruel. You're harder to catch than you look. They turned. A new enemy stood in the tunnel. Tall, armored, helmeted, not fully human, not fully machine. A hunter of the Empire. He held a blade shaped like a claw, and in his other hand, a chain weapon, spinning slowly. The human stepped back. The woman pushed him behind her. The hunter stepped forward. You shouldn't have picked up that sword, he said. She raised it high. Come take it then. The fight exploded fast. Metal on metal, fire on stone. She was strong but still wounded. The hunter was fast and knew her style. The human tried to help, throwing rocks, distracting the enemy. Just for a moment. Just enough. She struck. The sword pulsed again, this time with new energy. The hunter's armor cracked. He growled and vanished into smoke. Not dead, just gone, she panted, eyes burning. They're sending hunters now, she said. This means we're close to something important. She looked at the human. He nodded, and for the first time, she reached out and placed a hand on his shoulder. You're not just a passenger anymore, she said. You're part of the war now. Far away in a dark tower, the armored figure from Part 2 watches the battle through a glowing screen. A second figure steps into the room, cloaked, hooded. Shall I send the rest of the hunters? The figure asks. The leader shakes his head. No. Let her find the spark. Let her gather the last rebels. He leans forward, voice low and dangerous. Then, we burn them all at once. The betrayal and the bond the world outside the tunnels was not better. Gray skies, burnt trees, metal ruins stretched across the land like dead bones. The air tasted like ash. They had escaped the prison, but freedom didn't feel safe. The woman led the way, her sword covered with dried blood and dust. The human followed, quieter now. He limped but said nothing. The pain was growing, but he kept moving. He had no armor, no weapon, no idea where he truly was, but still he followed her. She didn't show it, but she was watching him too. He had survived so much already. He had given her back her sword. He had saved her life. But why? Why him? Why? Now after all this time and that image in the memory chamber, him standing beside her years before they met? No answers. Only questions. But soon, they would reach someone who had answers. The wind howled as they crossed the wastelands. Giant machines lay half buried in the dirt, wreckage from the old war. One of them still had its head, a robot shaped like a lion, its eyes long dead. Finally, she stopped and pointed to a cliffside ahead, a small cave mouth, nearly hidden by stone and sand. This is it, she said. Stay close, and don't speak unless I say. He nodded. They entered the shadows. Inside, warmth, firelight, the sound of voices. A hidden camp, armed figures stood up, pointing weapons, but lowered them when they saw her. Gasps. A woman with one eye stepped forward. Her skin was cracked like stone. She wore a symbol burned onto her shoulder, the symbol of the old resistance. I don't believe it, the one-eyed woman said. You're alive? The warrior smiled faintly. Barely. They embraced like sisters who had once fought back to back. We thought you were dead, the woman said. After the sword was lost and the warrior stepped aside, it came back. With him, all eyes turned to the human. Silence, then whispers. A human. They're extinct. He's just a boy. But the one-eyed leader stepped forward, studying him. He has your sword? She asked. He found it, the warrior said. Or it found him. Either way, the leader said. We need to talk. They sat around the fire later, inside the rock-walled room, maps spread on the floor. Old tech. Food that tasted like iron and regret. The leader explained. There are only a few of us left. The Empire crushed most of the cities. We've been hiding here for years. The warrior nodded. I found something. A signal. There's a gate. A place called Saul Gate. The leader froze. That's a myth. No, the warrior said. It's real. And the sword is the key. Then, something shifted. The leader's eyes moved to the sword. She reached slowly for her side. A whisper. The warrior's instincts screamed. Too late. A blade flashed. The warrior blocked it with her sword. Barely. In time. Chaos exploded. Guards grabbed the human. Others drew weapons. The one-eyed leader's voice rang out, cold and sharp. You should have stayed dead. The warrior stepped between the human and the traitors. Why? She asked. You were one of us. I was, the leader spat. Until, hiding became dying. The Empire made me a deal. Give them the sword. Live, refuse, and burn. The firelight flickered in her furious eyes. And now, you bring them hope again? I won't let that happen. The warrior's voice was steel. You were my sister, and you're a fool. They fought, sword against knife, flame against shadow. The human struggled, kicked, broke free from the guards. He ran to help, but was thrown back. The warrior was wounded. Again. The leader grinned, raising her blade for the final blow, and then the sword pulsed. A shockwave burst from the warrior's hand. A blast of light threw everyone to the ground. The traitors scrambled. The one-eyed leader crawled away, eyes wide. You awakened. It. The warrior stepped forward, bleeding, breathing hard. Run, she said. The leader did. The fire died out slowly. Only silence remained. Later, the warrior sat by the cave entrance. The human brought her water. He sat beside her, quiet. You trusted her, he said softly. Yes. And she betrayed you? Yes. He looked at her. You still fight? She turned to him. I fight harder. He looked down. Am I like her? He asked. A mistake? She shook her head. No, you're the only thing in this war that doesn't feel like one. And for the first time, she called him by name. Not because she knew it, but because she gave him one. Your name, she said, is Kale. The human blinked. Kale, he repeated. What does it mean? In my tongue? She smiled faintly. It means spark. In a dark chamber across the galaxy, the Empire leader watches a hologram. Beside him, the one-eyed traitor kneels. I failed, she whispers. He smiles. No, he says. You gave me exactly what I needed. He turns to a large black vault behind him. Now that the sword has awakened, he opens the vault. Inside, a twin blade, dark, silent, full of hunger. So, will mine. The resistance and the return night fell over the ruins like a silent threat. Not far from the broken cave, deep under a mountain shaped like a dead god, lights blinked, faint, hidden, and alive. The warrior and Kale had arrived, a resistance bunker. One. Of the last, they were met with suspicious eyes and loaded weapons. No one trusted strangers anymore. Trust had gotten too many killed. But then they saw the sword, and everything changed. Inside, the bunker was dark, cold, and quiet. Not many rebels. Were left, maybe 50. Some were scarred, some young, some too old to fight. But all of them stood when the warrior entered. She didn't speak right away. She walked to the center of the hall and held the sword high. The blade hummed with light. I am not here to lead you, she said. I am here to fight beside you. No cheers. No shouting, just silence. And hope, burning slow like fire catching on dry leaves. Later, she sat in the war room with Kale and the rebel commanders. The walls were covered in maps and fragments of old tech. Some of it still worked, some didn't. Soulgate, she said, pointing to a blinking point on the screen. The last chance we have. A rebel engineer frowned. We don't even know what's there. I do, she replied. It's a vault, a weapon, a power left behind by the ancients, something that can stop the Empire. Kyle looked up. What kind of weapon? The warrior met his eyes. Not a weapon that kills, a pause, a weapon that awakens. While others planned, Kale trained. The warrior taught him how to move, how to dodge, how to breathe before a strike. He wasn't fast. Not yet. But he learned. And more than that, he remembered. Small things. Flashes. A language he never studied. A symbol he had seen in dreams. You've been here before, she said one night. How is that possible? He asked. Some sparks are born from old flames, she replied. Maybe you are the echo of someone who once fought. The rebels prepared for war. Secret messages were sent, weapons cleaned, armor repaired, and slowly, more came, small groups, hidden, ships, survivors who had thought they were alone. They came to see the sword, to see her, but many came to see Kale, the boy who fell from the sky. The human myth. He didn't want to be a hero, but something in him, deep and ancient, was waking. One night, while walking alone, Kyle heard a voice. Not spoken, not loud, but inside. He followed it down into an old chamber beneath the bunker. There, in a sealed room, stood a console covered in dust. His hand reached out on its own. He touched the panel. The machine turned on. A voice, robotic and calm. User recognized. Kale unit active, initiating memory sync. His eyes widened. A light shot out from the console and entered him. Flashes, images, fire, stars, war. Another version of himself. Older, stronger, dying. He saw the warrior, younger, shouting at him. Then darkness. Then now. Kale fell to his knees. When he woke up, the warrior was there. She helped him sit. You remember? She said. Not everything, he whispered. But enough. She looked at him carefully. Then you know what's coming. Kyle nodded. And what I have to become. The next day, the rebels gathered. The plan was ready. They would strike a communication tower first, disable the Empire's spy satellites. Then, they would move to Soulgate. The sword glowed brighter than ever. And Kale wasn't just following anymore. He was standing at her side, not a soldier, not a myth, a spark. They launched at night, small ships flying low under radar. They reached the tower fast, fought hard, guards, drones, traps. But this time, it wasn't just survival. They were winning. Kale moved like he had done it before. He fought with a broken staff and a stolen blaster, guarding the warrior's back. She cut through the enemies like wind. Finally, they reached the tower core. Kale placed the explosive charge. How long? The warrior asked. He smiled. Long enough. They ran. The tower exploded behind them. The stars above flickered. The Empire was blind. For now, they had one shot at reaching Soulgate. But not all victories are clean. As they flew away, a message came through the broken signal. A voice. Dark. Echoing. Well done, Blade Bearer. She froze. The Empire leader. Thank you for gathering the rebels for us. Her blood ran cold. Now, we send the second sword. The screen blinked. And there he was. A figure in black armor, holding a twin blade. Dark as night. Pulsing red. Sword made not for awakening, but for consuming. On the Empire's capital ship, the dark blade wielder steps forward. His eyes are not human. His voice not natural. Find them, he says. Burn them. The Empire strikes too soon. Dawn never came. The sky over the rebel base turned black far too early, like the sun had been swallowed. It wasn't the weather. It was them. Ships. Hundreds. Quiet at first, then loud, like thunder without warning. The Empire had arrived, but the rebels weren't ready. The tower was just destroyed. The plan was to move the next day. The weapons were still being packed. The ships were still half-fueled. They were too late. No, the Empire was too early. Inside the bunker, alarms blared. Kale and the warrior stood near the loading bay when the lights began to flicker red. A young scout ran in, pale and shaking. They found us, she screamed. The warrior's eyes sharpened. How? The tower is gone. Kale's face turned cold. They didn't need the tower, he said. They wanted us to gather here. Realization hit her like a blade. It was a trap. Kale looked at her. They let us run. They let us plan. They watched. A loud crack shook the ceiling. Dust rained down. The bunker wasn't built for a full assault. Another explosion. Screams. People running, falling, shouting for orders. But no one knew what to do. In the command chamber, the warrior grabbed the radio. Everyone to the tunnels. Do not fight here. Scatter, escape, survive. But not all listened. Some refused to run. We have waited for this fight. One rebel yelled, "We stand." Others stayed behind to buy time, to hold the line. to die. Kale and the warrior moved fast. She guided groups to escape routes, cutting through fallen beams and opening blocked doors with the sword. Kale helped carry wounded, shielded. Children with his body shouted directions in broken rebel tongue. But time was a knife. It cut faster every minute. Then, they heard it. Footsteps that didn't belong to any soldier, louder, closer, and then, him, the Black Blade. He walked calmly into the fire-lit halls. Metal armor, red glowing sword in hand, eyes like frozen stars. Not human, not entirely machine, just hate in a body. He didn't speak, just pointed the blade and slaughtered. Walls cracked. Rebels flew back, bones breaking. The warrior turned. "Kyle, run! Not without you. I'll hold him. Not alone." But then, Kyle saw something behind them. A group of kids, frozen in fear. He ran. Not away. Toward them. He shoved them through a tunnel gate. "Go, now!" one boy cried. "What about you?" Kyle turned back. The Black Blade was walking toward the warrior. She raised her sword. Their blades met. The sound wasn't metal. It was pain. The warrior staggered. The dark sword drained her strength. Each hit heavier than the last. She wasn't losing the fight. She was being erased by it. Kale ran to her side, grabbed a rod of broken steel. Useless, but he swung and missed. The Black Blade raised his sword and struck. Kale fell. Blood. The warrior screamed. Something in her snapped. She roared. Her sword blazed with white fire. She struck. The Black Blade staggered. His mask cracked half a face beneath. Not human, not even close. He vanished into smoke. Not defeated, not dead, but wounded. The warrior fell beside Kale. He was still breathing. Barely. Her hands shook. "You idiot," she whispered. "Why did you come back?" He smiled weakly. "Because you would have done the same." Hours later, silence returned. The Empire left. They didn't need to stay. They had burned the camp, scattered the fighters, crushed the plan. What was left of the rebellion was hiding again, and Kyle lay in a medical pod, his life hanging by a thread. The warrior sat outside, alone, holding the sword. For the first time since this began, she looked lost. A rebel commander came to her. "What now?" The warrior looked. "Up we go to Soulgate." "With what army?" She stood. "With what's left." Deep in the Empire's war chamber, the Black Blade stood before the Emperor. His mask was broken, his armor cracked, but his voice was steady. "She is more powerful than we believed." The Emperor nodded. "Good." He placed a small orb on the table. Inside it, a flickering image of Kale, unconscious, glowing faintly. "Now, we find out what he really is." Found my sword. Kale dreamed of stars. They burned in his mind like memories. Too bright, too far, yet somehow part of him. He stood in a field of fire. Figures surrounded him. Some called him weapon. Some called him key. Only one voice called him son, and that voice was hers. His eyes open. Cold, metal ceiling, wires above him. He was not in the rebel base. He was in a lab, alone. No, not alone. A tall man stood beside the table. Not armored, not armed, just watching. His face was calm, too smooth, too perfect, a machine who learned how to mimic human patience. "You're awake," the man said. "Good. We were starting to worry you wouldn't survive the activation." Kale tried to speak. His mouth was dry. The man walked closer. "You don't know who you are yet, do you?" Kale blinked. "You're not a warrior. You're not even a boy who fell from the sky." He leaned closer. "You're the last interface. A living map to the Soul Gate." "They didn't tell you that?" Kale turned his head slowly. No chains. No guards. They didn't think he was a threat. They said I was a spark, he whispered. The man laughed softly. Cute. But no, you're not a spark, you're the match. And the gate is the fire. Meanwhile, the warrior stood at the edge of a cliff staring across a dead desert. Soul Gate, a giant structure buried half under the earth. Ancient, breathing light from its cracks. Her hand tightened around the sword. The last rebels stood behind her, fewer than before, tired, wounded, silent, but still standing. She looked back once, then forward. Open it, she whispered. As the warrior reached the outer ring of Soul Gate, it reacted. Symbols lit up, stone turned to steel. The air bent, and far away, Kale felt it. His blood heated, his mind shook, and then, without thinking, he moved. He walked out of the lab. The doors opened for him. No guards stopped him, they all just watched. The machines obeyed. At the gate, the warrior stepped into the center platform. Her sword glowed. So did the gate. But it didn't open. Instead, a voice echoed from above. Only the other blade can complete the circuit. Her eyes widened. He was coming. The sky cracked. A ship descended, black and wide like a predator. From it stepped the black blade, fully healed, armor shining red. Behind him, Kale, walking, not chained, not bleeding. The rebels raised weapons. Don't, the warrior said. Wait. The black blade stepped forward. You want the gate? He said. Fine, open it. He turned to Kyle. You're the key. Finish it. Kyle walked to the center. The warrior watched him, her eyes full of hope and fear. Kale, she whispered. You don't have to. He looked at her and placed his hand on the gate. The earth rumbled. The gate exploded with light. Not fire, not death. Memory, flashes in every mind. A war long ago. 2 swords, forged from star metal. One of life, one of loss. They chose champions. Those champions fought and died. The swords were hidden, but now they had returned, and one sword had changed. The gate opened. Inside, a chamber of mirrors. Kale entered. So did the black blade. The warrior followed. The room bent around them. Echoes whispered. One will rise. One will fall. One will choose. The black blade struck first. A storm of power. He wasn't fighting to win. He was fighting to erase. Kale ducked, dodged, moved like he had done it 100 times before, but he wasn't strong enough. The warrior blocked the final blow. She screamed. Fell. The black blade raised his. Sword again, Kale caught her. You believed in me, he said softly. So believe now. He stood, and the white sword floated to him, not thrown, not given, called. It flew to his hand like it had waited all its life, and lit up with a light the dark blade had never known. They clashed. Fire met void. Life met death, and in the end, Kale didn't strike to kill. He struck to return. His blade cut through the black armor and into memory. The black blade gasped and turned into dust. A man long lost to war, a weapon forced to forget he was ever human. The gate closed. The chamber faded, and Kyle stood with the sword, breathing hard. The warrior smiled. You found it, she whispered. Kyle shook his head. No, he said. It found me. The Empire's towers fell. The rebellion rose, not with armies, but with truth. The warrior lived. Her people rebuilt. Kale left the sword in the chamber, sealed the gate, and walked into the stars. A myth now, but not forgotten.